welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Riche of the MHRT Network. Over that away, back is the real Alex Givens representing his Kansas City Chiefs. You can catch his written content over on Arrowhead Addict and his fantasy podcast show with Coach Defense over on the Locked On Defense Network or Lockdown Defense. Coach is a Chargers fan like DZ. Look, maybe we'll convert them, but we'll see. Anyhow, down below we have DZ repping his Los Angeles Chargers. DZ, thanks for joining. And over this way, repping his Las Vegas Raiders, we have Jack Kenna, not to be confused with Captain Jack.
Captain Jack Kenna.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't work.
The West Coast Captain Jack.
Colorado Captain Jack.
Yeah. Someone's beard.
Colorado Kool-Aid.
Yeah, there we
That's
go.
what Coors Light is.
Yeah, it's got about the same alcohol content as Kool-Aid too.
Exactly. Keeps you hydrated.
Especially in Oklahoma.
Yeah. So we got a great show for you guys today. A whole lot going on. Obviously, tampering period leading into this show. New league year started already. Free agents have officially signed with their respective teams. All that good stuff. So a whole lot of news. Recent news, not recent, but certainly, within a few hours of the show starting, there was some additional news that was kind of between DZ's team and mine in terms of who's going to get the player. The Broncos ended up getting that player, so that'll be an interesting discussion for later in the show.
As evident by DZ's little below message there,
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Tell me you're frustrated without telling me you're frustrated. Anyways, with regards to all that, guys, we have just a jam-packed show today. In order to fit it all in, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to start off with just going around the table. I'll kick off with my Denver Broncos, and then we'll just kind of go to Alex, then to DZ, and then we'll finish off with you, Jack, and the Raiders. We are going to discuss those free agents or the free agents that our team has lost. And we'll also discuss as part of that those that are still out in the open market that are potentially available to be signed as well. So with that in mind, I will go ahead and read off my Denver Broncos list. So we had a special team standout, Tremon Smith, cornerback, who signed with the Houston Texans. We have our linebacker, Cody Barton, who signed with the Tennessee Titans. He played a starting role, actually, for my Denver Broncos last year. Had a few splash plays, but then also really struggled as well.
Someone got hurt, right?
Singleton Singleton got hurt, and then Barton kind of stepped in.
Yeah. We
lost the minivan chaser himself, Zach Wilson, to the Miami Dolphins. Husbands and ladies there in Miami, your soccer team's parking lots are no longer safe with the moms that are dropping your kids off there because Zach Wilson is in town. And we also have Javonte Williams over to the Dallas Cowboys on a 1-year, $3 to $3.5 million contract there. And a pretty big loss, actually, from my Denver Broncos. We lost punter Riley Dixon to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Started off the season super, super strong. Was also responsible for that trick play against the Buffalo Bills that we kind of ended up getting that extended play there on the kind of the fake punt.
Good playoff passing numbers.
Good playoff passing numbers for that guy right there for sure. But we lost him to the Tampa Bay Bucks. And that kind of covers off the free agents that are out with other teams. The Broncos have a few unsigned free agents. Fullback Michael Burton is out. Alex is familiar with Michael Burton. Came back over. Andy Reid guy coming from Sean Payton, that kind of stuff. So there's some definite linkages between our two teams, Alex, for Burton. I suspect that he's probably going to find a team at some point over the course of this season. I just think he's a seasoned veteran that knows exactly what he's doing, and I think that he's going to be an asset to any team that does get him. Quinn Bailey is a guy that you heard me talk about last year, swing tackle for my Denver Broncos. Can play guard as well. The only position I think he doesn't play is center, so that's a really, really versatile lineman. So long as his injury has gotten better, he is a guy that I do predict that we will likely sign back as a depth player or a swing guy for my team. Wide receiver, little Jordan Humphrey, not so little, standing at 6'4". He is still on the market for agent. And we have Zach Cunningham, linebacker, who is a guy I think you're familiar with, Alex, from your team, that is on the open market, which I do not suspect that we will be.
He's not from the Chiefs, but I am familiar with him.
Yeah. So anyways, with regards to those guys there, that's who my Broncos have lost, and those that are outstanding. Just one guy that I kind of hinted at. I was surprised, but maybe not totally surprised that we let Riley Dixon go. I thought that we may have made a bigger play for him in.
Sorry to hear you're in the ER.
The ER bit. I hope that you're.
I'm just
not there for. Yeah,
I hope it wasn't another scooter accident, Captain.
Yeah.
No drag racing, buddy.
You're drinking and scootering again.
Yeah. There's a reason why those scooters. There's a reason why those scooters have governors.
Governors.
So with regards to my Broncos, I think Riley Dixon was a bit of a surprise to me. I also look to kind of an outstanding guy. I kind of hinted at earlier. I do. At least there's a sense of humor in there.
He must have walked a plank or something.
Yeah. I do suspect that of all the guys that are outstanding, Quinn Bailey's the most likely for us to bring back on a team-friendly deal of some sort, so he can prove himself and show that he can remain healthy. He's kind of been a depth swing guy for us for a couple of years now, and I suspect that he will potentially be brought back just because he's such a valuable player with his versatility on the offensive line. With someone like him, you can keep a developmental guy on your roster at a tackle position, for example, where you would otherwise normally have to keep a guy that can actually step in and play. And so a guy like Bailey kind of affords you that flexibility because he can step in and start at left tackle, right tackle, and either guard spots, which I think is just, he's too valuable a guy to let walk as long as he's healthy. So those are my my kind of two guys on the one guy I'm surprised we lost, and then another guy that I think we will be bringing back. And then obviously we all know kind of my general feelings on Javonte Williams. I was kind of glad to see him leave. One of you guys were going to bring it up anyway, so I may as well just touch on it.
I'm surprised you didn't help pack his stuff for him.
Well, I did put out an offer. I never heard a response back. I can't imagine why not. But look, he had a great run in Denver in the early stage of his career. And sometimes injuries, honestly and truly, are career ending in some cases. And some guys are just unable to bounce back to their former form and glory. I sadly believe that Javonte may be one of them. There is the rare air possibility that he's one of those dudes that needs like 3 years post-injury to kind of like really bounce back and kind of be the same player. But we don't have 3 years to wait in Broncos country. So, I wish him all the best. I really do. But, he wasn't able to bounce back and do what he needed to do with my Denver Broncos ranking in the absolute bottom of every single starting running back. Too deep of a class for me to want to bring him back this year.
Bingo.
So anyways, that's where I'm at with my Denver Broncos and that list. Would love to see and get some kind of thoughts and stuff brought in here. Oh, sorry, you are right, John. Good catch. I did miss the fact that we brought back Stranad as well. My general thoughts on that were meh.
You also brought back Stiddy too.
Yes, we did. We brought back Stidham as well, but that's coming up in the in the list that's later in the show here, where we're going to talk about who we brought back. So we're going to break out the show a little bit here, guys. So we're going to kind of talk about who we lost and who's still out there. And then the second part, we're going to talk about who we signed and who we also brought back in terms of free agents on our team. We're going to save that for the last half of the episode. So, guys, what are your thoughts on the Broncos, on who we lost? Are you cheering for any of them, or do you kind of just look at it and say, duh?
Looking at the 5 that they lost, I didn't think it was, anything like Cody Barton's probably the biggest hit of the people that left. And that's just from knowing you have, a veteran linebacker who has some in-game experience and kind of gives you that safety net, if you will, with, like Singleton and Sanders and some of these returning guys that don't have the best resume when it comes to staying healthy. But other than that, like you said, we saw the writing on the wall with Javonte Williams. Like, we knew that was, that was happening. I think you said, Richie, we definitely saw, like, you anticipated the whole running back room, going somewhere else. So this is just the first domino to fall. But
hold on. In fairness, in my defense, I didn't anticipate the entire room going away. I took it a step further. I wanted them to all go away. I didn't anticipate it. I wanted them to go away. So I was even more aggressive.
Yeah. It was just the first domino to fall with that. But yeah, so I don't think there's any huge losses. And then, I relatively agree with the people you talked about that are still available to be retained. That I don't know that any of them really thread the needle for you, other than just keeping the culture consistent.
6 rushing touchdowns a season will get you shipped out somewhere else.
Yeah,
you're not going to last long, especially under Payton.
Nope. No. Yeah.
Gotta get you out of there real quick. Yeah, and actually, it wasn't that bad, Richie. I'm like, what you lost, and when we get to the second half of the show, what you got, I would think some smart moves by Denver.
Yeah.
I'm more impressed with
that game.
I am really impressed with who you guys brought in.
Yeah,
for sure.
We're going to get to that, but yes, you will very quickly find out that who we lost was overshadowed by who we brought in, and more importantly, for what? Like, in terms of their contracts, like it was not just who we brought in, but it was at the relative cost control for the most part that we were able to bring them in for. Now there's risks involved with several of them, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
For sure. You're muted. Oh yeah, you said I'm next, right? Or that we want to move to the Chiefs? Yeah. Sorry,
go for it.
Not to step on your toes there. My bad. But yeah, so looking at the Chiefs, like, first and foremost, going into the offseason, they had I think 28 pending free agents. So you knew that there was going to be kind of a purging change, in some regard. Certainly have lost, currently, as things are postured here in day 3 of free agency, they have lost, some big pieces or big contributors from, prior teams. Looking at 5 players they've lost so far, you got Rashawn Wharton, who was, very exciting D tackle. Like I said, he was a D2 guy from a relatively unknown D2 school in Missouri. It just, like, my buddy played with him. It was like, dude, he wasn't even special. Like, he was just this big dude that ate honey buns and peanut butter, like nonstop. And now, he's like, he led the team. He was either leading the team or was second on the team in sacks this year. And, he made his presence known as an interior pass rushing force with the Chiefs. And, he got paid. He got a 3-year, $45 million contract, $30 million guaranteed with the Panthers. That's certainly, I think that's the biggest one that I really wanted them to bring back, because he is still relatively young. He's 26.
Did you say 3-year 45?
Yeah.
Wow.
30 guaranteed.
Wow.
Yeah, they gave, that's so That's a guy I wanted to bring back, but not for $30 million because you're already
Right.
paying Chris Jones. Like you can't. And I am very curious. Like I mean, shout out to him. Like praise for him for getting his money. But I'm curious to see what kind of productivity you see without the benefit of playing next to Chris Jones.
Well, that's a lot of peanut butter.
Oh, yes, yeah, right. You got a lot of honey buns with that. But yeah, he's a big loss. Obviously, Justin Reed, staple safety since they moved on from Honey Badger. He signed with New Orleans for a 3-year, $31.5 million. You got DeAndre Hopkins, mid-season acquisition. He signed with the Baltimore Ravens. Samaje Perine went back to Cincy after his little brief stint in the AFC West. And then Justin Watson, he signed with the Houston Texans. His is the only one in terms of value that's not disclosed yet. But just looking at that, I mean, you've lost for sure 2 major contributors on the defensive side of the ball. Justin Watson has been a pretty consistent guy on the offensive end since they brought him in. D-Hop is kind of like, wash. I mean, he wasn't here long enough to really put his imprints on the offense, and I think they can move on without him. And same with Perine, he was kind of just a veteran running back presence, in the
There's
room.
that famous clip of Perine with Mahomes high-fiving everybody,
but him.
And he just like skips Perine. Well, I mean,
he said he was like really locked in on talking to Kelsey, and he just saw him. I mean, yeah, but yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, those are the 5 that they lost so far. Like I said, they had 24, 28 something pending free agents. Currently, still looking at 15 potential Chief players that are available. I'm not going to list them all because some of them are not all that relevant. But looking at the bigger fish, if you will, in the pool, you got Charles Omenihu, who was a exciting edge rusher they signed from the 49ers. And all I really know up to this point is that they tried to offer him, a similar deal that they gave him the last go around because he tore his ACL and returned very late this year. And he told them to politely kick rocks and then was tweeting about how excited he was to be a true free agent. So, we'll see. He's still out there though. So interesting to see how that market fluctuates. You got Derek Nandi and Mike Pennell are 2 D tackle. Like right now, as it's situated, the only D tackle that is signed for the Chiefs is Chris Jones. So I expect them to.
Well, he counts as 2 anyway. So
yeah,
yeah.
But you pretty much have your whole D line was free agents, and your biggest contributor from last year signed with Carolina. So you got Nandi and Pennell, who of the 2, I expect probably one of them to come back. DJ Humphries, late season acquisition at left tackle. I don't envision them bringing him back, unless it's just like super late in the game. Then you're looking at, Juju, Kareem Hunt, McCole Hardman. Those are kind of the last big pieces out there that are still free agents. So like I said, of the 15, I expect them to re-sign probably Derek Nandi or Mike Pennell, one of the 2, or maybe both. And I could also see him bringing DJ Humphries back as just sort of an added security blanket, if you will, in the left tackle room. I mean, I know we'll get into it later, but they obviously made an emphasis of that with some of their signings. But yeah, I mean, as a whole, I thought this offseason we'd see some considerable change in personnel and starting groups on both sides of the ball. And they've kind of done everything up to this point to make it apparent that's what they're planning to do. So, of this large list of pending free agents, I don't really expect to see a lot of them come back. And I think that's an exciting thing as a Chiefs fan, and as they kind of retooled to remain in this competitive, run that they've been on. And, the last thing I'll say, just as we're getting into this, I think it came out today, but the Chiefs also restructured Mahomes and Chris Jones's contract, yesterday or today. It was announced today, but it basically freed up another $50 million in cap space.
Yeah, cleared some big money.
My question after I saw that was, why the hell are they doing it right now?
Yeah, right. Why didn't they do it before?
I mean, yeah, it could be any. I mean, it could be any number of things, but I mean, in any event, they made it happen and they freed up space. So I'm excited to see what they do.
Believe me, I feel that same sentiment of what you're just talking about, cap space.
Right? Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy.
But
51
yeah. So, you guys got any thoughts on? I mean, I guess really more so the players they lost. You know, I think Justin Reed was one I was
Reed.
interested.
Interested.
I mean,
Reed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reed was the guy for me.
mhm.
I thought
I'm
you
not too
guys might
concerned.
put.
Go ahead.
Well, I thought
Sorry.
you guys might put
Too.
an. Well, I thought you guys might put an emphasis on the back end of the defense, just because you have such an elite guy on the inside, on the interior, that I thought that you might be able to go younger there, like in the draft, for example, but then get the vet. Like, you have to pick a spot to get vet presence and then pick a spot to go to the draft. And so
Yeah.
I thought that Casey may opt, you know, you might still do something, but there's not that many options out there now that are like initial starting guys that can kind of fill that gap. Someone to backfill Reed, and I thought you might go young at the D tackle, like draft wise, to have them learn under Jones, because Chris Jones is not leaving the Chiefs unless he's retiring.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
You know, and so,
Yeah,
like, he's just not. I'm sorry, he's just not happening.
He was leaving the Chiefs. It would have been last year. Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So he's staying with the Chiefs. So cool, awesome. I hate to see that, because the dude is just still that damn good. Like, it's pretty frightening, actually, just how good that guy is on the field.
Right.
And so you have a guy that kind of basically fills a role of two players in Chris Jones, but you don't, like, you could have, or I thought you were going to backfill the safety position with someone else, and then go after a young guy at D tackle, because D tackles in free agency, even halfway decent ones, are quite pricey. Casey is somewhat
as evident
strapped
by Wharton.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It doesn't
Someone
make
is,
sense to me. It's like all these interior D line guys are getting paid with such a heavy
I think it's
rookie class coming in.
I think
Well,
it falls victim to like
Philly.
what happened. You know, like everyone watched Philly dominate Kansas
Right.
City with a crazy interior D line. So then you see free agency, all these interior D linemen are getting, you know, a big bag, because I think recency teams are thinking like, well, that's a blueprint right there of beating these good
Well,
teams.
it's more than just Philly, though, Alex. Right?
Yeah.
You saw the Bucks do it to KC
Minnesota
as well.
Vikings.
Yeah.
And you saw the Vikings have some
on Christmas
success in
Day.
that regard. Like, a lot of the really, really good teams in the NFL today, like the top tier ones, all have multiple dudes that are really good on the interior of the D line. And
Yeah.
a lot of teams are looking at that and saying, this is important.
And you don't
And
let
so
those guys
it makes
walk,
sense.
do you? Unless your name
No.
is Joe Ortiz.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Well, and also
yeah.
this isn't the best free agent class, though. I mean, a lot of these guys are getting paid because there's not great depth
They're just,
that's out there too.
They're just the best available of the worst available. You know? Like, but yeah, I hear you. Like, Reed was definitely the one I was shocked to see him go, but they kind of did it, I think, the same way that, you know, they did when they moved on from Honey Badger. Like, they just, I don't think, ever offered him and let him go. And ironically, he went to New Orleans, so he went to the same place. But yeah, I thought that would be a veteran presence that they would bring back, because he has been playing at Pro Bowl, pretty good caliber safety for us. But that being said, they have spent the last 2-3 drafts drafting younger safety secondary players. And so, you know, that may be a sign of, hey, you know, we got like Jaden Hicks they took in the 3rd round last year, and he contributed this year. They've had Brian Cook, who took more of a starting role on this year. They had Shamari Connor, who was kind of a tweener guy that they tried to play in sort of that nickel corner position this year. But I think they figured out he's more of a true safety, and maybe they want to give him that role. So, yeah, I think that's just, again, like I said, the front office is making every move to affirm, like, hey, we're going to kind of go on a more youth revolt, influx of getting rid of some of our older guys who are going to be a little costly to keep around, prioritize the ones we know we want to keep in our core and just, supplement where we need to. So there are still some safeties out there that I think, of the pool, if the cards play right and they're still available later in the free agency game, I can see him bringing in just to have that veteran presence. But I mean, as time goes on, even in this show, that available pool is certainly drying up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was Reed, and then to your point, Alex, you typically want to have 2 veterans on your D line.
Yeah.
To kind of fill that out, and then you want to supplement with the dude in the draft or 2 guys in the draft. And so the question is going to be, is there someone else that you guys have already spoken with who's just kind of hold out and wait to come into you guys, or is this a, we think we have time, and eventually we'll just bring some guy in, and the draft is kind of where we're going to find that talent. I mean, and even at I predict, actually, to be quite honest, that there's going to be a guy probably taken in the 3rd round of this year's draft in the interior line that is going to light the league on fire, even as a rookie, and people are going to start wondering why he wasn't a 1st-round draft pick. I think there's that much talent in the interior D-line class this year.
Character issues or some BS.
Yeah, well, 100%. It'll be some stupid, and it's like, the guy will turn out to be just fine, that everything was overblown, and the team that took him was like, sitting here like, we just got a guy that we're gonna probably have to pay, $30 million a year when his 2nd contract's due, but we're paying him like, $5 million, over the course of 3 years or 4 years or something. Like they're just gonna be like laughing all the way to the bank, right? And so, anyways, I truly just believe that there's gonna be guys like that, and I think the Chiefs. Andy Reid is the one thing that I will give Andy Reid some credit for with the Chiefs, even with the recent issues that have gone on with Quindon and your other dude there, Worthy. I think that Reid has generally kept all sorts of guys in line with the vision of winning. Right? Generally speaking, no one's perfect. Cool, I get it. I totally understand. You're throwing a boatload of money at a bunch of 20-somethings and saying, hey, don't make a mistake. Okay? Look, like, I would love to try to be the guy that's going to come on here and say, oh, yeah, well, when I was 20-something, I would have never done that. Yeah, but no one gave me, $20 million literally in one day and said, now what are you going to do? Okay? So let's all collectively slow our roll a little bit in terms of, going all the way in that direction.
I'm glad when I was 20, cameras were 4 megapixels.
Yeah.
Just say that.
No cell phones.
No
Immediate
camera, on the street.
I am glad, Richie, that you did briefly bring up Worthy, because I think it's a perfect time for me to just highlight that, I don't think it was – they always grossly cover in the news the potential crime and potential charges. They don't necessarily make sure they follow up to ensure that the masses know that no charges were filed against Xavier Worthy, because what his team, his PR team came out and said ultimately determined to be true, and that he was trying to kick his girlfriend out of his house, and she was refusing to leave for multiple weeks, to the point of calling the cops to report him for domestic violence just so he would stop trying to kick her out.
Right. So, and I was on record when we kind of first discussed it by saying, I am in the hurry up and wait camp, because like,
especially with stuff like that.
Let's put it this way. There are far too many pro athletes that find themselves in situations like that with young women who have developed a sense of entitlement for the fact that they're now professional athletes, significant others have quote unquote made it.
Yeah.
And
it's like a small fraternity.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite pictures to this day is when Russell Wilson got drafted.
I was just about to say that. The wifey divorced. She's like she thinks she might as well just.
She thought she hit the lottery, and he's like,
but yeah,
nope.
And that's not to discredit like domestic violence or issues like that, because it
No, not
certainly
at
is
all.
prevalent. But like, especially with athletes, there has to be a little more sensitivity to investigating and reporting it, because I mean, like you said, it's almost like they have an extra target on their back. Like
this was not a Ray Rice situation where you literally have a video of like the thing, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like
what? How do you respond to that?
Yeah. It's like, look, dude. Like, there's no defending that. Like you figured that one out on
like
your
I said,
own.
there's literally there's a small percentage of the population, of the female population, that's their number one priority, is to like get pregnant by a famous person or an athlete, because then that means they got to pay me money to have this kid. And that seems to be more and more prevalent today than it has been. And it's disheartening.
Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that your wide receiver room was not necessarily filled out with a double hit there. I still think that your other wide receiver there, unlike Xavier Worthy, he was caught on film. He was caught on tape. He has basically owned up to kind of what he did, that sort of thing. And I think that he has a little bit more explaining to do, given what he did, how he did it. And in addition to that, the drugs in the vehicle and his lack of presence on the scene after the fact, I think are all, flag. And frankly, I don't believe there's really any real defense to that, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I just think that, Worthy kind of literally said, the answer is no.
Yeah.
and I know the truth.
And here's the receipts.
And here's the receipts to prove it. And frankly, I think that shows actually, do you know what that shows? That shows the exact opposite of the attempted character assassination that they tried against him, which was, that shows a guy who has conviction and and kind of character and awareness and stuff. And so I actually think that bodes, and I hate to have to say this out loud, I think that bodes really well for your wide receiver room in the future, because that's the type of dude you want on your team.
Absolutely.
And a part of me died inside when I just said that aloud, Alex, so you're aware. But I call it as I see him. I think that's a dude that just showed that he has character. Right? He showed he has character. He has standards. He has requirements, and he's wanting to try to kind of probably be the best version of himself, and he wants to make sure that the people that are around him are helping him get there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad to hear that.
And I hope he never gets there.
Yeah.
Well, we can go all the way there if you really want, football wise. Yeah, but like, honestly, I'm glad to see that he is attempting to.
Well, at least not against my Raiders. He can get there against your guys' teams.
Right. I'm just glad that he is trying to do the right thing, to kind of do the right thing for his career, and I hope that he's able to kind of get himself back on track. He can have a bad game against my Denver Broncos, and I'm not going to complain about it. But I just think that as a young man trying to navigate what is very difficult to navigate at that age, I say he did so pretty well. So congratulations. But moving on to your team, DZ, let's go in your list and go from there. David, thanks for joining the podcast here. We've had a few podcasters from the Broncos side of things join us here today. I just want to thank everyone for jumping in and showing us the love here on the Wild Wild West. This is definitely a unique podcast with all four teams of the AFC West represented. So it's awesome to see. We had Mic'd Up join us earlier. I don't know if he's still in the chat. We got David Talks Broncos. John has been involved in many. John here, you see him in the chat here, guys. He's been attached to multiple different podcasts affiliated with Broncos Country. Love to see all the folks here in the chat. If you have questions for any of us about the different moves that we've made or not made yet, leave those questions below and we will do our best to answer them. DZ, over to you. And how many beers so far?
Only 2 so far. I've been at like a level 10 all and then right before the show started, I had dinner and it dropped. It was like my blood pressure was just like, and I'm like coming back down to earth right now. But all day I've been just livid, just like probably the majority of Charger fans. The way last season ended was embarrassing, but it showed the team's glaring holes. And we had holes on the interior line. Justin Herbert needed a dominant X receiver. And then other than that, maybe a tight end, maybe a few guys here and there. We had about 31 free agents this offseason. Quite a few because they did come in cap-stricken when this new regime took over last season. Well, that wasn't the case going into this free agency. When they released Joey Bosa, they had up to $93 million. $93 million. And I don't know if there's an embezzling scheme going on in El Segundo. We might need to check the owner's bank accounts because this money is not getting spent. Us Charger fans watched all the top free agents just get picked. I watched Ben Johnson in Chicago and forget what's his name in Minnesota do exactly what I wanted for this team. I am pissed off and confused at the same time. I'm seeing Charger fans saying they're canceling their season tickets. Like they have no clue what is going on. Now, we did lose a few players. We lost one to Alex's team, wherever this is, Christian Fulton. And I think a lot of the guys that came in last year, and I heard this last season with the coaching staff and some of the beat writers, they said, hey, come play for us for a year and we'll get you paid. And that's what happened with Christian Fulton. He got a pretty decent deal in Kansas City. Good for him. He started the season off really well and then kind of went down. I mean, he had a kind of a roller coaster of a season, but I'm sure he'll do really well over there in Kansas City. But the one that stung player that we lost was Poona Ford. Poona Ford statistically was one of the best D tackles in the whole NFL last season.
He was.
This guy came over from Buffalo on a down year. Buffalo didn't really use him that much. You know, he was known for being a long time. Yes, man.
We know.
I know. Thank you. Miss my opinion.
Hey, how's the salt in that one?
Anybody got limes or lemons?
Down.
Oh, yeah, battery acid.
Or even a GPS on that one.
But so we lost. So Poona, we were like, all right, this guy's got to come back, man. Like this guy, it just. So I was watching some of his highlight clips earlier, and I'm like, oh my god, like. And the thing is they didn't just let him go. He went to our landlords, to the damn Rams, for 3 year, $30 million contract. That's why when I asked you about Wharton, what his contract was with Carolina, I was surprised that Poona got a little less. I thought Poona or Wharton, because, you know, California, 50% taxes, and Carolina, I don't think they have a high tax bracket over there. Anyways, I would have taken Poona over Wharton. That's just me, but whatever. Apples and oranges.
Yeah.
So that stung, losing Poona. And then I think the big loss per se, but the writing was all over the wall, all over the building, all over the ground, was Joey Bosa was cut, and that saved the Chargers about $25 million in cap space. And I think everybody and their mother predicted that he was going to go to the Niners and play with his brother, Nick. But I have no clue what the Niners are doing. They are tearing that thing down to the bones. And Joey ended up picking Buffalo, and I wish it was the NFC. But I think he'll do well in Buffalo as long as he's like a situational pass rusher. You know, he's got 1 year on his deal. I don't think they'll tolerate him drinking White Claws up there. They'll probably,
Gotta chug blue cheese.
No, you got to do blue cheese and beer. And if you don't do that, you're kicked out.
They're probably big Molson fans or something up there, being so close to the border.
Pabst Blue.
Yeah, ooh, I love me a Pabst Blue. But yeah, we so far there's three losses of some pretty consistent starters last season. The free agency for the Chargers started off with a bang, and I got one of my favorite players back, and that was Elijah Molden. And then it was just crickets for a while until the tampering. I believe the second or first day tampering period. I'm not 100 on that. And then they didn't do anything yesterday. And then today was just comical. Us fans. I'm in a large Charger chat with some very colorful language. Let's just say. Very passionate fans, and we've just watched guy after guy after guy that would have been perfect fits for the Chargers just go to other teams. And the definition of insanity is what the Chargers have currently on this team and who are projected to be the interior offensive line going into the 25 season are the same three it looks like they're running it back with. Now, granted, free agency isn't over with and the draft hasn't started, obviously, but they re-signed Bradley Bozeman to a 2-year contract, albeit dirt cheap, thank God. But this guy statistically was one of the worst centers in all of NFL last season, and it showed because Justin Herbert had dudes in his chin in that playoff game against Houston and against all three of your teams. And after what I saw in free agency, the Broncos and Raiders, and I'm sure the Chiefs are just going to be just fine, are going to be a hell of a lot better defensively. So I'm slightly just mind effed and confused on this Baltimore West kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They're bringing this whole Baltimore thing over, and I'm not used to it. I was used to Coupon Tom Telesco, who Jack knows pretty well. And I'll be honest, I put it out as a joke. I kind of missed the guy after what I saw in his free agency. I don't think he would have let this stand. I don't think he would have brought back Bradley Bozeman. I think, a lot of Charger fans wanted to get Drew Dahlman, who we had some pundits say, he wasn't a scheme fit. Well, if he's such a good athlete, I think he could adapt to a run gap scheme opposed to a zone scheme. I'm sure he would have been fine. And then just earlier today, what's his name? Zeitler signed for that 1-year deal. He has connections to Greg Roman and would have been great on that 1-year deal in LA, and they just didn't do it. So I'm not a really happy camper as a Chargers fan, but I'm sure it will change, I'm sure.
You have another issue in the draft and just in general.
Oh, yeah?
One.
Thanks. What do I have, Rich?
Well, I actually see we have similar needs.
Yes.
And we're kind of picking ahead of you.
You can see some sniping.
Yeah. And so, for example, there's not many centers in this draft that are even worth drafting that can start really. And so that's an issue. Yeah. And then the other problem is even with your extra cap space that you kind of freed up with not bringing dudes back and all that kind of stuff, which is an interesting position because the Chargers really haven't been in this spot for a good number of years. You've kind of been in cap hell, and all of a sudden now you got money, but you're not using it at all.
Right.
Really, the problem you guys have is the only way you can truly obtain a center is to aggressively trade for one from another team. And I'm not sure other teams would be willing to trade a center this year because the 2 or 3 centers that need to be traded away from their current teams for cap space, those teams don't actually get the cap relief until next season.
Yeah.
And so there would have to be some kind of incentive to alleviate themselves of a top tier position on the offensive line this season which means you'd have to give up, we'll call it excessive draft capital, I think would be the best way to put it, in order to incentivize it.
Can you put that comment up?
Well, you can always go after Andre James. Raiders let him go.
Yes, that's the comment. So there are a lot of Charger fans that want Andre James. They realize why he had a bad season last year, and I think it was 2 years ago he was pretty damn decent. So a lot of Charger fans would like to get him, but I think I said this on last week's show when Joe Ortiz and Jim were on the Pat McAfee show at the Combine. They floated the idea of cross-training Zion to become the center, and I think that's their plan because he is a first-round offensive lineman. He did take snaps. Look, I get it. The kid is, in my opinion, he's a first-round bust as an offensive lineman. We picked him at 17, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. So I think what they're doing is they really are going to fool around and find out with Zion, and they sign Bozeman to a cheap deal as a fail-safe plan. Like, if this backfires, we'll put Bozeman back out there. Now, they still, in my opinion, need to get another center. Who is he talking about? He would still probably do better with Harbaugh. I don't know who he's talking about. Oh, Andre James. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'll take anything. Anything is an upgrade of what we currently have. And we still have the right tackle, Pipkins, or right guard, who played tackle last year. He's still – and I'm honestly surprised they didn't cut him because they would have saved $9.5 million. But look, they're not using the money, so why would they cut him anyways? I don't know what's going on in El Segundo, to be honest with you. Yeah, and then another glaring issue is we watched all these receivers just get signed. There's nobody left. I mean, Cooper Kupp, and then I've heard him linked to the Raiders. There's some Raider beat writers. I've seen him linked to the Broncos. I've seen him linked to the Chiefs. I've seen him linked everywhere but the Chargers. So even though I think he would fit well, even though he kind of plays the same position as Ladd, he would do really well. And at this, frankly, I'd take anybody right now, to be honest with you, because I think currently as it stands, it's Ladd McConkey, Jerry Rice's kid. Yeah, there's Amari.
Stephon Diggs.
If I could have got like 2020 Amari or 2021 Amari Cooper, that'd have been great. Stephon Diggs, I could not see that working with Jim Harbaugh, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought Diggs would I could see Diggs in the other places that could handle kind of diva dudes. And frankly, I don't think Jim has ever had a diva in his history of coaching. If you want to call Crabtree that, I don't know.
Nah, he wasn't a diva.
Yeah, so, John, that's exactly what so this is what DZ's issue.
They need an X. They need an X.
Yeah,
they need a guy that can create separation, be an X.
Yeah. And the problem is Kupp really isn't that guy on the outside. He's the dirty cleanup guy that can sometimes be broken, or at least outside.
I mean, the thing that pisses me off is these guys came out after last season ended and said to the whole world, we did a disservice to Justin Herbert. And us fans are like, no shit, Sherlock. So get him some help in this offseason. Now, look, I get the draft is coming up, but the draft isn't known for being stacked with receivers. It's top end heavy with receivers and tight ends, and then it's decent with running back. So we're like, look, get him a Devontae, get him a DK, get him somebody, get him a dude, get him a dog in LA. And they just let him go. And DK was linked to the Chargers. DK practically said, come get me. And for whatever reason, Seattle, and I know it takes two to tango, Seattle chose to ship him to Pittsburgh.
Do?
The owner?
Yeah.
Spanos?
What's their core business?
So they are they are builders, based mostly out of Northern California. And then just as of this offseason or last year, they sold their minority stake to the owner of the Detroit Pistons, if that tells you anything. They're not a really good organization. But
I
they are.
think that I think what their issue is then is their other business is probably not doing particularly well.
They're not. They've always been so. The Spanos family, like, they've always been like. So, from
They're
what I
meddlers?
get, they're more of a blue collar kind of ownership group, and thankfully they're not like the Cincinnati Bengals ownership group, which I couldn't stand if I was them, even though they are keeping all their shiny toys. But they're not the most wealthy, like the Hunts or like the Walmarts of the Denvers, and they're not like the Eagles fans ownership. Like the Eagles ownership, man, he is really. Everybody's like, how are they paying these guys? And it's because that guy is wealthy and can do it.
He can just throw money into escrow and then pull it back out of the team, like whenever it makes sense to do so. He doesn't care. The other thing that the Broncos had, just to kind of add on some additional kind of pound of flesh to the conversation here, I suppose, is the other owner, the Bolins, prior, Pat Bolin in particular. He was all in on football. Like his pride and joy was the Denver Broncos and their success. And he was a very hands-on owner, but unlike Jerry Jones, he didn't meddle. He was involved in the football side of things, but he let the football guys that he hired do their job.
Right.
Jerry Jones wants to be the reason why his team does well. Pat Bolin just wanted his team to do well. Yeah. And there's a very, very big difference. Alex understands, given his career, that my words matter. And I was very careful with what words I chose. And they do matter. And that's exactly the difference between someone like a Pat Bolin and a Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones has to be seen as the absolute reason why his team has won. Whereas Pat Bolin was quite content to never really be seen, but to kind of be known as the owner that cared.
Well, right? there's a theory, especially with longtime Charger fans, is we've been putting blame on, like, let's say Tom Telesco, who was a GM for the last 11 years, and before him was AJ Smith, who did similar, who was a similar style to Tom Telesco. Now that I, think about it, they didn't really make flashy trades, and there's a theory with the old school OG fans that yes, they did, but that it is ownership pretty much kind of pumping the brakes due to maybe funds, pumping the brakes on some of these big time guys through trades. And we thought that was over with when they brought in Jim and Joe Ortiz. They paid big money to get Jim there, and then in LA and with the Bolt and the shiny stuff. But now that I think about it, with Joe Ortiz bringing his Baltimore ways to LA, if you think about it, it's just you build through the draft, and it's a comp pick formula, and they let guys walk. They let their good guys walk more to get those comp picks, and it's just a recycling of new players, and you just pick a few and you keep a few.
Yeah, but you don't actually have the foundational people in LA. That's the challenge.
Not yet. I mean, there's some.
No, I'm not saying you don't have any, but my point is that you can have that style and that approach.
Sure.
Once you've built out a group of core players that are about the team, and then the team looks after those core players. I look to that guy over here with Chris Jones, for example.
Yeah,
I am willing to bet dollars to donuts that, given the fact that KC has looked after Chris Jones at every turn when he's requested it, that they could go to Chris Jones and say, Chris, we are drafting a first-round interior defensive lineman. You are going to pull him under your wing, train him. And do you know what Chris Jones is going to say? No problem.
And then my opinion,
no problem.
To my opinion, that said Telesco can draft. I don't know who team you're a fan of. He got really lucky with the Raiders last year. That guy cannot draft after the third round. and you can go back to all his drafts. None of his players are still on the team. Like, this guy cannot hit on anything after the third round. He got lucky on a few undrafted guys. Yes, okay, so he did well for the Raiders last season.
He did. But he got three starters.
Hold on. We've had this discussion before on the show.
Sure.
You had two guys that were full GM caliber players within the Raiders organization. You had Champ Kelly and you had Telesco, 1A and 1B. So the question was, and the Raiders fans are going to find out real quick this year because they have neither in the building anymore. Kelly left and Telesco left. So the question is this the organizational draft scouts that are really good? Yes or no? Because you didn't have time with the new changes that you made to gut your front office in the scouting room. That'll come after this year's draft, if there changes need to be made. And I'm going to tell you right now, you could have some really good scouts that you have in the building there with the Raiders, that your GM and his assistant GM will use as scapegoats so that they don't get the blame, so they get to keep their job just a little while longer if they're the ones that made the mistake. They will point to the scouts and say, it's not our fault, it's theirs. I believe that Kelly was the real reason why your team drafted so well, so deep into this last draft for the Raiders. And for those that are fans of the AFC West that want to slag on the Raiders, the Raiders drafted quite well this past draft. And I mean deep into the draft, the Raiders drafted quite well.
It's like these elite players just fell to them, and I'm like, oh my God, nice.
Yeah.
Well, it made it easy for Telesco because we know he doesn't like to trade picks.
No,
but you also had a guy in Champ Kelly who's known as a details guy. He is the equivalent of Alex's former OC. The dude that everyone felt should have gotten a
Eric Bieniemy.
Eric Bieniemy, right? Eric Bieniemy is like a nitty-gritty details guy that rubs everyone the wrong way, but as long as he's paired with a guy like Andy Reid, who is very kind of like open and kind of boisterous and well-liked and stuff, if you pair two guys like that together, you actually end up with a team that's like a well-oiled machine. However, if you get a details guy paired with another dude who's like a hard-nosed, just like, pound and ground and, I don't care about your feelings or anything like that. If you get those two types of guys paired together, you end up with a disaster because there's too much adversity and too much friction on the team in order for two guys like that to coexist and cohabitate in the same plane, in the same area. So Bieniemy and Reid, you can even see with KC's offensive numbers and stats and stuff, when those two guys, a details guy is paired with an open-minded, let's just bring in ideas. KC's offense was elite, like NFL elite.
Eric Bieniemy is an old school guy that kids these days, and it's very obvious in what happened to him in his last stop, but they can't deal with him. He's from a different era, and he coaches in a certain way. So
he's my style. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, he's a dude.
Yeah, he's my style. That's I respond well to guys like that because my answer is hold my beer, I'll prove you wrong.
Right.
Yeah, and
that's how I grew up. That's how my coaches were. They bang whistles off your head, make you running in front of cars.
I remember I had like two fingers taped in the game, and I broke my index finger on my other hand, and it was taped like this, so I looked like Spock, right, from Star Trek. And the guy's like, you really shouldn't be playing. I was like, really? That sounds like a challenge. And it's a little things like that. It's like when I broke my arm, I got tackled into an open goalpost because the padding was removed. And they said, oh, you broke your arm. It's like, you probably shouldn't be playing. I was like, well, I'm finishing the season, so you can go to hell. I did finish the season with a broken arm. But again, it's just, you have to have a different mentality, right? You have to, kids I find these days are taught to coddle the injury rather than play through it. They're taught to overcorrect rather than, take a couple steps back and assess. I just find that the whole critical thought process is kind of thrown out the window, where they're just not. They're thinking to self-protect rather than for the benefit of the team. My team did well because I didn't pull myself off the field. My team did well because, and I was just fine. I'm now many, many years older, and my wrist is totally fine. Like, I have no issues. I have no pain. I have no nothing. So again,
you don't have any pain. Oh God, every day I wake up and something's clacking. Every day there's something different. I'm like, my ankle, my knees. I'm walking upstairs and my legs give out on me. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
No,
Dude,
I mean,
wait till you guys get to be my age.
Look, I did have the nickname of Wolverine, as one of my nicknames growing up. So I had the big chop sideburns. But again,
yes, he is. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. But anyways, the point is that a guy, you're totally correct. Bieniemy rubbed guys in the younger generation the wrong way, and you didn't end up with a yin and a yang between a guy like Andy Reid and him to coexist together, which actually makes for a really, really good team, which Alex can attest to, because he had his best offensive success with the two of them together. An ultra detailed guy, hard nosed, paired with kind of an open-minded, team-friendly style guy.
He also had Tyreek Hill too, so.
Well,
that helps.
He had that, but then they also did some like really weird things in the run game where they were able to leverage a guy like Kareem Hunt, for example. Like a lot of guys, and McKinnon and some other dudes. Like, we all forget that it wasn't just it just wasn't him. Like, it wasn't just the cheetah that blew the socks off of the entire division. It was a combination of factors. It was leveraging and identifying Kelsey as a guy that could actually step up and fill that role. It was identifying someone like Kareem Hunt, who basically lit our division on fire in the run game with the hybrid between pass catching and running. And more importantly, knowing when to use one or the other, right? Because that's a skill in and of itself. And so there's all sorts of things like that I think that the two of them worked really well together. And a guy that's really focused on details really makes all the difference once you have another guy to say, don't worry, I know he chewed you out, but let's go kill it next Sunday. and you need the yin and the yang in the room, and you need the two types of guys there to balance one another out. Otherwise, these young guys that are so soft, like you said, DZ, are going to be, running back to their friends, be like, this dude's just a trash bag and I freaking hate him and I want to get traded and blah, 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 blah. And it's you know what I mean? Like, you can't have that kind of attitude on the team and succeed. Jack, quickly over to you, and then let's move on to who we acquired.
Well, I got to kind of start off in the way of, Raiders started off with almost like $100 million in cap, but when they made the trade for Geno, and that's a $40 million cap hit, that's 40% of your cap that goes away right from the get-go. Raiders, so they gave up, right? They gave up 4 starters on the defense, and that's going to hurt. When that was a totaling of $47 million. So there's your trade-off. You get a quarterback, you're going to have to get rid of players. The number one guy, and for Raider Nation, it is the hardest one to lose, the one I don't get, because Spytek says, hey, you don't let good players walk out your door. That's exactly what he said. And when I saw Spillane, leave 3 years for $33 million going to the Patriots, I'm like, come on. I mean, I was the biggest head scratcher. I don't get it. He's like a captain. Besides Max, he is a captain of the team, not just the defense, but the team.
He's a Raider.
He's a good guy, and he had the Raider mentality too, right? Like he was the guy. Yeah.
He just fit the role so well, and watching him grow after he came over from Pittsburgh, and they're saying, oh yeah, he can't do anything pass coverage, and he developed that over the years. So as a middle linebacker, he had the capability to play against the run. I think he had 140 tackles or something like that. And it's like, and he can also he can play pass coverage.
He's in good hands though, and with Vrabel, I'll tell you that. But yes, I get your point. We get your point on that.
That was hard. I mean, that one was the hardest one for me. The next one, I can see it money-wise. You just can't afford him. Was Trayvon Moehrig. Raiders got him in the second round a couple years ago, and he got a 3-year, $51 million deal. So 17 per going to Carolina. And I can see Carolina needing that. They need that type of player. But for the Raiders, again, it was so expensive, and they, I'm not talking about players that we re-signed, but they did fill the spot behind him at a better price point, which we'll talk later. So that one hurt. He's a good player, but I can see him going just because of the cost of the cap. Nate Hobbs was another one I never would have guessed. I mean, everything I read that he was supposed to get about $5 or $6 million, and he got a 4-year, $48 million deal, so $12 million per going to Green Bay. So now he's going to hang out with Josh Jacobs. So you can go kick cans at $12 million a year for a guy who can't, stay on the field. I think he missed like 6 games last year. So that one didn't surprise me. But yes, he is a good slot corner. We don't have anyone to replace him. And that's pretty much the same thing with Spillane in the way of the linebacking core, because we also lost Diablo. So I didn't, no one in the nation was surprised that he was going to walk. We all thought he was going to walk. And we just figured, hey, we can replace him with a player in a draft, because, we would have had Spillane. But now both our middle linebackers, our slot corner, and our starting free safety. So losing 4 starters on the defense is just going to be hard to replace all those guys. And like DZ, like we're same thing over here. It's like, after getting Geno, it's like seeing what they've done. It's like, I'm not sure what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense.
Jack, I think you're kind of like my fan base is like 90% ready to pitchfork and torches. But I think your fan base, from what I've seen, is like half are pretty excited about Geno, another half are kind of like, what are we doing here? But personally, I think it's a good pickup for you. I know you're not really too stoked about it, but his stats.
It did take me a little bit of time, DZ. I will say that. When I first heard the news, I'm like going, wow, why are we going to give up this type of money? And he's going to want to restructure, which has not been done yet. So we don't know what that's going to look like. But I was like, he's a mid quarterback, 14, 15 rating. Okay, yes. After you think about it, I think he will fit good with the scheme. And yes, if you look at our quarterbacks last year, they're probably all 31 and 32.
This guy, he was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league in the last few years, and now he's going 70%. From an outdoor stadium to an indoor stadium with some pretty decent weapons, and I'm sure you guys are going to add on to that. So I think the arrows are pointing up for that Raiders offense, man.
It's changing. It's going to be going from kind of the defensive side more towards the offensive side. So, but are you really getting any better? I mean, because again, losing 4 stars,
Jack,
that's going to be difficult.
I hate to be the one that actually has to bring you down from the ledge and give any positive news towards literally my divisional, largest rival within the AFC West. I want you to hear me out, and this is super important. I'm going to regret saying this out loud as soon as I'm done saying it. I promise, for sure. But all of the league rules are favoring the offense. Sure. Every single one of them. Every single one. So, hear me out. Your quarterback play last year was beyond subpar. You were not able to overcome the subpar quarterback play. Now, your GM, and not fully their fault, but your GM and just generally the approach to your team did not put a competent offensive line in front of your quarterback to actually allow them to succeed either. So that's a 2-pronged issue. So number one, you've now sorted your quarterback position. You have an accurate quarterback who has some mobility, who can, in fact, gain yards even on teams that struggle from time to time. Great. Your offensive line needs to be addressed in this offseason and through the draft. If you do both of those things, your running backs will also look better because they need holes in order to run through. Last year, your offensive line just got destroyed, demolished. And so
to add on top of that, our offensive coordinator, in the beginning with Gonsby was just trash himself.
Right.
And it did get better when they replaced him with Turners. So It did improve, and the offensive line play did improve. The running back play did not improve at all.
I disagree. I believe you're wrong. your running back play significantly declined because your offensive line offensive line could not run block. There's a difference between offensive line, right? There's A, B, and then A plus B. So you can either pass pro really well and you suck at run block. You can run block really well, but you're really good at pass pro, or you can do both. Philly is an example of doing both.
Doing both.
Okay. Yeah. Just like to kind of give everyone kind of a benchmark in terms of what to look for. Alex, I mean, we all watched let's just be honest. The answer is yes. Okay. So
I think the best example of a team that could do both is probably Detroit, more so than Philly, just due to the fact that Philly has a mobile QB. Detroit's O-line, I think, in my opinion, would probably be slightly better. I think Philly's There's no way, because the Philly offensive line, they're really just bigger.
Pro. No, but that actually matters because it gives you more versatility. So when you're bigger and can move and can pass pro and can run block, you're actually then able to.
We'll find the stats. Me and you will have a friendly bet.
Yeah,
we'll find the stats.
I mean, I'm totally okay. I'm totally okay with that. But my biggest issue there is, in order to open up holes for a guy like Saquon Barkley and have him go for that much success, your offensive line are at minimum an elite level run blocking team.
Sure.
And then when you move over to the pass pro side of things, you then also have to have some nimbleness in order to then counter the speed of the edge rushers. And what is rare, what we saw from Philly's offensive line, is that they're able to do both because they drafted accordingly. They ignored the mantra of, I need really light, small guys to do both. They said, no, you need to identify the talent to do both. And they did that, in my opinion. And I think that's a fair statement to be made. I mean, KC does not have a slouch of a defensive line. They have very, very good edge rushers and one of the best, if not the best, interior D linemen in Chris Jones. Although some of the Philly dudes are certainly nipping at his heels right now, if we're going to be honest, in terms of kind of gaining that ground.
Boy, did Milton get paid.
But again, like the point is that offensive line play matters greatly. Taking this back to Jack and your Raiders, and why I need you to step off the ledge a little bit, calm down, and maybe, assess things a little bit differently. You got your quarterback. You may not love your quarterback, but you got your quarterback. He has proven to be a pretty accurate quarterback over the years. Last year, he had some pretty good yards and he had some pretty good play. And he's certainly in a completely different league than any quarterback that you had on the roster or played for you the last year, and perhaps even the year before.
And the only reason I brought him up, because it does affect the cap space, which then affects, the guys you're going to go after in free agency and the guys that you're going to lose in free agency. So that's the reason I brought Gino. And then I will say this, here you go, DZ. So the offensive line improved when Andre James got hurt, and then JPJ moves over from a non-natural left guard position to his natural position at center, and you bring in a Jordan Meredith who played actually pretty damn well. So you've kind of filled two holes at once. So the offensive line play got better and better over the course of the year. And I don't see it as scary or as bad as it was last year in the beginning of just having Cody Whitehair, Andre Pete, and, got those guys getting some runs in the beginning of the season and not doing anything. So it has been an improvement, and I can see that offensive line definitely having better play this next year.
Yeah.
Great. So I think it's fair. Let's maybe move on to who we brought in, and then we can kind of have maybe an all-encompassing conversation quickly going through things here. I will again kick off with my Broncos, and then we'll kind of go in the same order, and then kind of all have
Start off how you fleeced the Los Angeles Chargers right now.
You want to go there? That's cool. So in my second least favorite free agency pickup, just to rub additional salt into the wound, DZ.
Just do it for it in my eye.
The second word.
The Broncos were able to pull Evan Ingram into our tight end room away from. So the Broncos had Ingram in our building, allowed him to walk to go and meet with LA, And after meeting with LA, we still signed him.
He said, "Nah, I'm good with."
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Let's go over to Peyton. So that is,
Right.
I mean, if there isn't a redemption arc in any conversation, I don't know if there is a better one. Than
I'm willing
like
to
that.
bet. I am willing to bet that Joe Ortiz said, "Hey, we'll offer you a 1-year deal," and Ingram was like, "No thanks," and took the 2-year deal with you guys. I think they try to do some BS, like some comp crap with him, and he said, "No thanks. I'll take the security in Denver."
Yeah, I mean, I think that's entirely possible. I think that's entirely possible. So my general thoughts on Ingram is I think he's a great player, not an elite player. I think he is also
Sure.
a limited player.
Yes.
He's kind of a one-trick pony. He can
He's a
catch
giant
the ball.
wide receiver.
He's just a really big wide receiver. And so my issue with him is he kind of is a guy that the defense can key on, and that is my major concern with him on the field. Now, that being said, he's had a not great quarterback over these past few years, and he's still averaged a total of about 775 yards, even with those perceived
That's
limitations.
damn
that I'm
good,
saying,
especially at
which
tight
is
end.
not bad. Like, that is not bad. And
No,
so,
not at all.
and so I'm willing to hurry up and wait to kind of see how he's used by Peyton. I also have some semblance of we'll call it comfort with regards to the fact that Sean Payton has used a guy like Evan Ingram before in his past and done rather well. Right? There's a guy named Jimmy Graham who you might be familiar with.
Yeah.
And
You don't say.
Yes, and just throwing a name out there that is very similar to Evan Ingram in many respects. Couldn't block himself out of wet paper bag, but still managed to catch a whole bunch of touchdowns and light the league on fire in certain years as well. So I think that Peyton can leverage a guy and knows how to use a guy like Evan Ingram. I also think he fills a certain role. As long as Evan Ingram basically starts taking snaps that little Jordan Humphrey would have otherwise used, as well as Lucas Krull, who was in the similar mold to Evan Ingram on the Denver Broncos, I think that I'm okay with that. But my concern is we can't rely on him for the pure tight end role. He's going to get exposed in the run game with blocking and that sort of thing. So we need to be very, very careful about when and how we use them. Otherwise, I think it can hinder our offense if we are not careful. We also acquired a wide receiver, Trent Sherfield. He's a low-key guy. I actually think that he's going to be a much bigger contributor than a lot of people give him credit for. He is very good in terms of body control. A few highlight reels you can see of him if you're looking for them on the Bills. He was in the back of the end zone. He was able to stop the entirety of his body, lean both feet in bounds, and actually catch the ball and then kind of fall out of the end zone for the touchdown, I might add. He's also a spectacular special teams player, which is what I think is going to allow him to stick on the team and not get cut. So I am super happy with him. I think that he's just versatile. He's just the guy that can kind of tick all of those boxes for your team. I spoke about a guy that we lost in free agency by the name of Tremon Smith. Tremon Smith was not a contributor in the cornerback room. He wasn't a guy that really knocked or blew the doors off of anybody. Whereas Sherfield is a guy that can actually contribute on the offensive side of the ball and play special teams. And I believe that adds more value to the Denver Broncos roster than a guy like Smith does, just because of those tick boxes that he kind of checks off. Good teams, their special teams are elite because the guys that they have on special teams are the depth players that can also play a role in their respective positional groups if and when they're called upon and play special teams. Sorry, it's just a fact. We mentioned the Baltimore Ravens. We mentioned some of these other perennial playoff teams. You notice that one thing that they all have in common, their special teams units, pretty darn good. Yeah. And KC is another actually good example of that, right? KC has a very deep roster and their special teams are excellent. Why? Because they have a pretty deep roster, right? You've got guys that are elite at all of these different levels that can contribute, and that's why. One of my favorite signings was Dre Greenlaw.
Oh, this is one of
linebacker.
Yeah.
Okay. That is in the upper tier for me. It was a position of need. He was kind of the best guy really available within the open market at that position. Super happy with that as a signing.
Dude, he was the best guy at that position, period.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some guys that, you know, would argue, you know, injury risk, et cetera, but I have some trust in the Denver Broncos strength and conditioning folks. We were able to really turn things around. He's got great coverage ability.
The reward outweighs the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, he was playing at a stupid caliber level before he got hurt in the Super Bowl. I mean, literally, and it was like a freak incident. Like, he got hurt from being so jacked up to get on the field that his Achilles just snapped. Like, it's, you know, and then I think it's tough to, as we saw with like Kirk Cousins and these other players that have that same injury, it's tough to come back, I think, the next year and be good. Like we saw, you know, Aaron Rodgers took some time to get back. Like Cousins didn't really fully come back. Like Greenlaw never really fully came back this year. But, you know, like, yeah, I think I saw that signing and it was like,
I'm the same way. I'm like, after Spillane was gone, I'm like, that was the guy I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm like, just bring him on over.
Yeah. And then the other guy we brought in was Talanoa Hufanga at safety.
That guy.
So that guy there again is in the vein of he came off injury. By all accounts, he's looking to be recovering well. I have confidence in our this is the difference between where I was a couple years ago and where I am today. I have confidence in our strength and conditioning coaches because we've been able to get guys both healthy that have come off injury and play well, as well as bringing in guys that were injured and keep them healthy on the roster, which tells me that the strength and conditioning coach, as well as the nutrition, is being done the right way on the team. I know that's been an issue for the Chargers, DZ, just to kind of toss that out there in the past as well. Which is undeniable. I'm sorry, it's just a fact, right? With the injury issues there. I
injuries?
think, injuries and staying injured and that kind of stuff, right? So
yeah, we got that. He's on Buffalo now, so that's over.
Yeah. So I really like the Hufanga and Greenlaw pickups from my Denver Broncos, and I think that they not only offset but completely outshine any issues.
Richie, I looked up real quick. Broncos, according to Grok AI, had the number 3 special teams in 2024.
Yes.
That's pretty good. I didn't think they were number 3.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. That's pretty cool.
You just texting Rob Gronkowski questions like that? That's crazy.
Yeah. And so those are the true free agents that we brought in. John.
Alex, did you think I said Rob Gronkowski?
No,
you said Gronk.
I knew what you said. Yeah. I was just taking the opportunity for a little play on words.
Rich, you got one more too. You need a
little sleight of hand.
Well, John, you asked me earlier about AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon just recently signed with the Eagles per X. And
how about that, huh? Talk about being a defender, dude. You deal with Saquon, then he gets off the field, then you got the freaking, the Quadzilla come out there.
Yeah. So the Eagles have kind of said that they intend to set the tone with the running game for sure.
Oh my God.
In 2025. And so
I would have called in sick that day if I was some secondary guy playing against him. Sorry guys.
Yeah.
I think I tweaked my vagina. I'm not playing this Sunday.
Yeah.
Freaking Saquon and then AJ Dillon coming at you with that old line. No thanks, man.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And so just to quickly go down in very just quick bang, 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 just kind of bringing some other guys up. We re-signed Jared Stidham on a 2-year deal. We signed Mitchell Fabioni, who is our long snapper, to a 3-year deal, so we don't have to worry about that position for a little while. We brought back in DJ Jones, who, by the way, I called that. Right, I called that last show or the show before.
That's another Niner you guys picked up. You know,
That's
like
correct. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. We brought in Matt Pert on a 2-year deal, and then the rest here below were all 1-year deals. But I'll quickly blast through them. Justin Strnad, who I could have lived without, but we brought him back. We got Jaquan McMillan he's a cornerback. He was our starter nickel guy there. Jaquan McMillian, apparently, is how he likes it pronounced, on a 1-year deal. We got Lucas Krull on a 1-year deal. Lucas Krull is basically the guy that Ingram is going to be replacing. So it'll be very interesting to see if Krull even makes the roster. And then we have Dondra Tillman, Jordan Jackson, and Devin Key. So Jordan Jackson is an interesting name because he's a defensive lineman that was a free agent, but he's a guy that really showed some interesting flashes over the course of last year. He might be a guy that could actually earn himself a long-term contract if he can step up his game a little bit over the course of this year, because, as we've spoken about earlier in the show, these interior defensive linemen are so valuable in today's NFL that he could well play himself into a long-term deal if he's able to actually elevate his game a little bit more. I don't suspect that he's going to be a guy that's going to have like a, our outside linebackers success, for example, as a 1-year like turnaround, if you will. But I do think that Jordan Jackson, for example, if he elevates his play, he could be signed on kind of one of those 3 for 15 with an out at the end of the 3rd year kind of thing, there, if he kind of elevates from where he's at now. So overall, I am actually incredibly happy with where my Denver Broncos have and how we have played free agency.
Best free agency in all the AFC West, that's for sure.
I think that's a fair statement. I really do. It's not that I'm not biased, because I am, but I truly will call a duck a duck. I am known for being one of the most critical Broncos fans in Broncos country of my own team.
Richie's got an orange and blue art on right now.
Yeah. So I'm really happy with where we have brought things to. I wish we had brought in one of the running backs that were available. Like, you got Najee Harris. I would have liked to have him on my team, for example.
Who got Najee? Kenna did?
No, you guys
Chargers.
did.
Chargers
No, we didn't get Najee.
You got
God. So I would have
another one I heard.
I would have hoped for him to bolster the running back room with the loss of Javonte. Then I would have been totally okay with like the remainder of the guys just being told to go find another team and enjoy themselves. Because then I would have looked to the draft to kind of bolster that group. The only guy that I probably would want to keep is probably McLaughlin. I thought that he did really well for us last year with some burst.
Is he still a free agent?
No, he's signed through this year. I think he's a free agent next year though, because he was a UDFA. So UDFAs are on shorter contracts for less, and so he's going to be seeking to get as much money as he can in his next contract, rightfully so, because that's really his only real option to kind of really get paid at that position group, right? So, anyways, that's where my Denver Broncos are. Happy with the pickups, happy with who we brought back. Still think Quinn Bailey's going to come back for my team. We brought back some key guys that I felt we needed to kind of fill out major needs on the roster. Running back is still an issue. And John, you are correct. He does become an RFA, but he is going to want and demand a pay bump in order for him to come back. So I think, and frankly, Peyton has shown that he's willing to show guys that have done the right things for the team. Peyton has shown that if the guy wants to just get paid, he will let the guy walk. He will say, please go to free agency and seek out what you want. And I do really like that about Peyton, where he is willing to do right by guys that do right by us.
Can somebody tell me like how you become an RFA over an ERFA? So
restricted free agent is typically reserved for dudes that were lower pay scale and UDFA. So for example, you had the benefit of and also playtime factors in, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, but how do you what's the difference between an RFA and then an ERFA?
I think EFRA, they have to tag them. Like there's only so many of those.
It's like Chargers,
future players, like practice squad guys.
Okay, because we had a couple of those, and I was always wondering, like.
But I don't really know. I don't pay attention to that too much.
I guess I'm gonna ask Gronk.
Ask Gronk. See what Gronk has to say.
Let's see what Gronk says.
If I'm not mistaken,
they're just bros.
If I'm not mistaken, the RFAs are typically guys that were like UDFAs on your roster because their pay, the structure, and the fact that the team took the risk on them. That's how they get their return. Yeah, they get the opportunity to match and come back and stuff.
Yeah.
And
like
so
you made this guy valuable. You get a chance to say, hey, I'll pay you that too.
Yeah, exactly. And because RFAs are often like the undrafted free agents or like seventh round picks and stuff like that.
Exclusive rights free agent.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Richie. I'm sorry. It still doesn't tell me what the hell it means.
He's like, I got it. Wait, no, I don't.
No, it's like a.
He's like,
so exclusive rights free agent, if I'm not mistaken, basically means that the team that you're with has the right of first refusal.
Yeah, there you go. Let's just go with that.
Yeah.
Richie's got it. Thanks, Richie.
They have to apply that tag on them, right?
Yeah.
Like
No. You have the right to exercise that, but then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going off of pure memory here, so I might be slightly off, but I think I'm generally correct on this. RFA means that you basically own that player and then have to kind of like release them out into free agency if you want them to. ERFA is a little bit different, where they can kind of go out and seek that free agency component, but they're basically your exclusive rights, which basically means that you have the right to say yes or no on whether or not they go to another team or not.
Okay.
So to match it and stuff like that, right?
And ERFA is also a player with 2 or fewer accrued seasons whose contract has expired.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense too. Okay.
There you go.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, so
we can stop world hunger next.
Yeah. So anyways, that's where my Denver Broncos are right now. I'm expecting that we're probably going to be trying to bring in a running back, perhaps. However, if for whatever reason,
swear to God, if it's J.K. Dobbins, I'm off this show. I'm throwing this laptop in the ocean.
Well, with that being said, if we don't bring in a running back, I do think that somehow tips or will tip the draft of what the Broncos are looking to do, perhaps by bringing in a running back or two in the draft. You know, some of the running backs that were meant to be available as part of free agency got brought back by their teams just in advance of the free agency period and during the tampering period. And so what that ended up doing was it took some guys off the board and limited the kind of upper group of some of those running backs off the table.
They got paid even with the deep running back class. I thought it was going to devalue the running backs a little bit more, but no, these free agent running backs were getting paid even with the deep draft. So
what you guys did with Ingram makes me think that your guys' draft pick is going to be Omari and Hampton. I'm saying it here first. I think that's the Broncos pick, is Omari and Hampton, who would just kill it with Peyton. That guy can do it all. Who?
I want interior defensive line.
Sure, what you want and what you're going to get are two different things. You're getting a running back.
Unfortunately, you're right. But I still want interior defensive line.
Kenneth Grant is a beast, and I want him as a Charger. So
yeah.
I want him too.
Yeah. So
I might actually get him.
So my thought process is that if you bolster your lines enough, like the Eagles have done, and what I want my Broncos to do, you can actually make middling guys look much better.
Yeah.
And as a result, kind of, addition through subtraction kind of thing. You can have worse guys in certain skill positions with the right offensive line and the right defensive line and actually make them look way better than they actually are. And that's kind of what we saw with Roby for a little bit, like as a cornerback. He was a good player, but he wasn't a great player. But he got the bag when he went to Houston from the Denver Broncos in the no-fly zone. And a lot of that had to do with a guy like Derek Wolfe, for example, who is a friend of the MHRT network, who's come on for a few interviews with us. He was a beast on the defensive line. And all of those guys, and frankly, you need to ask no other than Chris Harris Jr. and Aqib Talib rather.
You don't say Chris Harris Jr.'s name in these parts anymore. Earmuffs.
Well, both he and Aqib, for example, were both excellent with the Denver Broncos, but they were all equally bolstered by the fact that there was an absolute just dominant interior defensive line that existed on that Super Bowl 50 team for the Denver Broncos.
That was a great team, man.
Yeah, it was spectacular. And so anyways, when you look at stuff like that, all of that matters, and that's my point. So I would love to have a dominant interior defensive line. We haven't had it since Super Bowl 50, and proof is in the pudding. We've seen a dominant one win last Super Bowl, and I think that the Broncos are at least in a position now where if we were to further bolster that we could really be a force within the NFL if we opted to go in that direction. That's what I would like. But either way, focusing on free agent, I think we did really well. I think we got some great guys. And I do think that between rounds 1 and 3 of this NFL draft, if I had my druthers, it would be Grant, then it would be a tight end, and then we would go in a very deep running back class and get one of those other running backs that have yet been picked that are still going to be great and have him brought in to our team. But what I would like to see from my Denver Broncos in this free agency period right now is for us to start packaging together some future picks, absorbing some of the capital from another team and bringing in a center to really also then further bolster the offensive line. If I had my druthers, that would
Richie,
be mine.
How many picks do the Broncos have this year?
I haven't looked yet because I want to wait for everything to settle, and then I'm going to assess that at the end of the show.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, guys, and we have a fair number of folks that have joined us now.
Yeah.
If you are on the MHRT network channel, there is a little thumbs up. It looks kind of like this. If you can go ahead and click that, it really helps our show and reach other fans just like you.
Sponsored by Walmart.
And if you are over on Captain Jack's channel watching from the Raider side of things, if you can also do the same, but then also come over to the MHRT network and click those.
Sponsored by Ben Gay.
Yes, we would greatly appreciate it, and it helps all of us out. It allows us to reach additional fans that are just like you. Also, because we do include all the tags in here to try and capture all 4 of our teams, the goal here is to reach as many AFC West fans as possible so we can get all of your input into the show. It does really help us a lot, and we love getting those comments. Over to you, Alex, and talking about your free agents.
Yeah, so, for the players that the Chiefs did lose, they absolutely, I think, made, the right moves in returning some key components from teams past, and I think have made some pretty intriguing signings in terms of free agents. So first and foremost, I know I haven't been on a little bit, so they obviously traded Joe Thuney to the Bears to kind of spark freeing up some cap space, and I think opening other opportunities to make some moves this offseason. So did that, got a 4th round pick. Sucks to see him go, but I think the writing was on the wall with that, and we've seen him kind of do that with players on expiring contracts. Just recoup some draft capital and ultimately move on. And then I think of the top 100 free agents that the consensus top 100, they made it a point to re-sign 2 that were, I think, for the most part in the top 10. And franchise tagging Trey Smith, and I do think with moving on from Tooney, on top of restructuring Mahomes and Chris Jones, we see them work out a long-term deal that probably makes him one of the highest, if not the highest paid guard in the league, which is why they freed up some Tooney money. But huge to not even let him sniff the open market and see how other teams value him. So good to bring him back. Also brought back Nick Bolton, 3-year, $45 million deal, which I think that's another guy. I may be a little Mizzou biased because that is where he's from. But dude, he's just a tackling machine. Man. Like he's a
dude, bro.
He doesn't do anything like he doesn't look overly athletic. He doesn't have like all the like gaudy 40 time or anything like that. He doesn't like do anything overly special, but like he's just always there. Like he's kind of like
lunch pail kind of guy,
like
man.
he's just he does the little things right and is always in the right place at the right time, or just he makes those plays. Like I can think of countless times just last season alone where he made a huge stop, that obviously they won so many games, by 3 points or less. And, some of that was to plays that he made. So it's, I think, big that they didn't even let him hit the open market, just said, we're re-signing you. Let's work this out.
Do you have a Nick Bolton jersey, Alex?
No, but I want to get one.
There you go.
I don't wear jerseys all that much, man.
Me neither, but I'm just saying.
I got a Mahomes one and a Kelsey one. The Kelsey one was given to me,
Gotcha.
But yeah, so big to sign him back. Also brought Hollywood Brown back, which I kind of saw that happening. One, just because of the injury, and that was the most money he was going to get, and he ranted and raved all season about how he loved being in Kansas City and with that franchise. So I saw that. I think of their impeding free agents, like the ones that they decided to not let hit the market, whether through a tag or working out a deal, those were the right moves, and I think the right players to continue to build around. And then in terms of players that they signed out of that free agency pool, biggest one, I think it has to be Jalen Moore, the left tackle they signed from the 49ers.
How did I miss that?
It's not an overly sexy pick. And it definitely screams like Brett Veach level pick, because it's, again, like he's not the big name. He's not the Cam Robinson. They did try to, at least from what I've seen out there, they were in on Ronnie Stanley. And he ultimately stayed in Baltimore. So I think Jalen Moore ended up being more of a plan B. But again, like I said, Veach guy, like he has experience. He's, I think I looked at his stats, out of the last 3 seasons, he's given up 4 sacks. He's played about 700 snaps at left tackle, given up 4 sacks and no penalties.
Wow.
And, last year alone, his PFF pass block grade was a 73, which was higher than any Chiefs offensive tackle in the last 2 years. So again, like he has the Veach metrics, to bring him in, like 2-year, $30 million deal with like 70% of that guaranteed. Like it's not a crazy investment. And I think, as I've said in shows past, like it gives them that competent option at left tackle to not have to, put Kingsley out there. I think solidifies that Kingsley Sumamate is going to be the left guard, or at least the favorite to be the left guard next year. And I think this also frees up, again, like they don't have to spend draft capital to try to move up and get a Will Campbell or one of these other, combine heroes at tackle higher in the draft and can know they have a competent option.
Because that's all that there is in this draft.
And try to backfill it, later with a guy that doesn't have to be rushed on the field, or like I said, sign another veteran like a DJ Humphreys or something like that, just to give you more stability. But I think Jalen Moore is the big signing. Also signed Christian Fulton, the corner from the Chargers, which I again, like another Veach signing, like he has all those tangibles, and I think can pair nicely with McDuffie and Jalen Watson and the secondary core they had. Also signed Elijah Mitchell, which, from the purging of the 49ers that the AFC West has seemed to do. That's one I'm kind of excited about, because like he certainly has injury concerns, but has shown some flashes in the pan, and
he'll magically stay healthy in Kansas City,
right? Yeah.
Your guys' injury report was like no names the whole season.
I mean, it's out. They did lose Rasheed Rice for a whole year, but and Pacheco for a while. But I hear what you're saying. but yeah, I mean, I think that's an exciting one if he can stay healthy, and I think would be intriguing to see how Reed uses him and how he complements Pacheco. So really, like as a whole, the free agent signings and retention signings they've done, I think, have addressed the most glaring needs going into the off season. I wouldn't say like completely resolved them, but certainly addressed them to where it's less of an issue than it was. Looking at what still needs to be done, like I've said, they have, I think, 3 signed defensive linemen right now. So certainly need to continue to add to the edge rush room as well as the interior D line. And I do expect them to do that, whether re-signing some of these pending chief interior D linemen or doing that through the draft. But, it's nice to know that they got a viable left tackle option. Like they got a decently young corner, backfilled the running back room to complement Pacheco. And so really, yeah, like re-signed your guard, re-signed your middle linebacker, re-signed Hollywood Brown. So now it's like we just need to complement some of these areas of need rather than having to fully figure them out. So, I like what Kansas City's done so far, and I'm excited
kind of
to see
under the
what they do
radar
in the draft.
too.
Yeah, for like nothing overly splashy, until they inevitably re-sign Trey Smith to a uber massive extension. But yeah, I mean, nothing overly flashy, like not overspending on anyone or signing anyone that you're like, what?
From the outside, the Tooney like threw me for a loop, but I guess you being a Chiefs guy, you kind of, like you said, you saw writing on the wall with him.
Like, I mean, like they did the same thing with Snead, did the same thing with Tyreek. Like, I mean, Tooney of those makes the most sense because he's like 33, about to be on the last year of his deal, and was like the highest paid left guard.
Dude, so, Bolton was on my wish list
before the show. If they would have restructured, Kelsey and Mahomes before, you probably could have kept him from the one last year.
Yeah. I mean,
Bolton, man,
because he's solid,
huge.
No, absolutely, and I mean, like, it's testament too to like he had to play left tackle for the last half of the year. Man's a career All-Pro left guard. And they, like that kind of leaves a sour taste to me as like a fan and the former offensive lineman of like, here's this guy that, is 32 years old. And you're like, hey, can you play left tackle? Like, I know you haven't done it since college. Yeah, I'll figure it out. Like, has to go against Myles Garrett. Josh,
put me on an island against Myles Garrett.
And holds his own. Like, doesn't give up any sacks to Myles Garrett. And then at the end of the year, you're like, hey, we traded you to Chicago for a 4th rounder. Next year, not even this year.
I wonder if he paints his nails with Caleb next year.
Yeah, right. No, but I mean, it made sense for both sides, I think, in the long run. Wish they would have gotten some sort of draft comp for this year, just so you could kind of realize that return a little quicker. But, it is what it is. They still have, I think, 5 picks in the top 4 rounds. So, I mean, there's a lot to work with in this draft.
Yes, definitely.
Agreed. I mean, the Chiefs did all the things they really needed to do, generally speaking, in free agency. And I agree with you. Now you're almost in a BPA spot, although you may be more of a BPA plus, targeted depth, in terms of lens, kind of where you guys are at, because there's obviously certain positions that you're going to be like, no, I would rather not pick that guy there who's at that spot. Like if you have a guard, for example, and then compare it to like a tight end, and they're basically equally graded, you're probably going to be bringing in the tight end because Kelsey's getting older.
Don't fuck with me, Space Beast.
So.
Don't do that to me.
Don't. Just not right now.
No, he hurt himself with the pen, so he's not going to be signed.
He meant
No, that's funny that he said that, because are we going to transition into the Chargers?
Yeah, we're going to go Chargers.
Yeah, you're up.
Okay, because it's kind of funny that Space Beast said the Mike Williams things, because I think it was the last signing the Chargers did in free agency was a cornerback from the Commanders, Benjamin St. Juice or Justice or whatever the hell you call it, whatever his name is. And one of the highlight clips is him getting burned by old man Mike Williams in Pittsburgh. And let's just say the comments from Ian Rappaport when he said the Chargers signed Benjamin St. Juice was like the Commanders being released from prison or something, because they were all in celebration of getting rid of this guy, which I didn't know who this dude was, to be honest with you. But what Minter, I guess Minter will fix him. Like, we're like now as a Charger fan, we're all like 100% confidence this guy can fix anything. Probably not true, but that's we'll see. He hoodwinked the Chiefs and thinking Fulton was good, so there's that. But we'll start the Chargers. Well, what the Chargers said was their first and foremost, most important thing that they want to do is bring back their guys, which I'm assuming is it's a lot of the guys they brought in on one-year deals the previous year, and some of the guys they deemed. God, man, I need to turn off the chat because this guy. I'm getting confused. I do not want this to be real. Anyways. Don't just stop. Right. Fuck my life.
Just keep talking. I'll wink if it's right.
Denzel
so they wanted to bring back
signed with the Chargers.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
No, look. They brought back their core 4 and linebackers. Denzel Perryman is actually the last remaining San Diego Charger. And people thought when Joey Bosa was gone, there goes San Diego. All the San Diego roots are gone, even though Jim Harbaugh did play quarterback for the San Diego Chargers, for all you youngsters who didn't know. So Perryman brought back, I love that. And what that means is that they have faith in Junior Colson taking a step next season. That was a rookie linebacker from this year, the guy out of Michigan, my favorite draft pick. That did not pan out, but he is – I got faith. I got faith he'll step up in year 2. Hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, the whole thing. But
it looks kind of legit.
Fuck you, man.
He's coming home. Coming home.
Look. I love Mike Williams' character. He seems like, to me, he reminds me of Antonio Gates, like how they present themselves. They're very chill, very nice guys, but this guy can't stay healthy. And Ben Johnson, our strength trainer, is gonna break this dude. So we'll see. Maybe he doesn't make it out of training camp, and we don't have to deal with me holding my breath every Sunday like I did for Joey Bosa and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen's.
Hey, you said you wanted anybody.
1 year, $6 million, up to $6 million.
Yeah, this is how damn desperate I am right now, huh? Look, when this show's over, I'll jump for joy. I just can't do it on here. But so as of today, well, actually, that's 13, I believe. That's the 13th signing they've made. But I guess the third biggest for me would have been they brought back Khalil Mack, who for his first time in his career was testing free agency. And I honestly thought he was going to go to Buffalo. I didn't think Joey was. I thought he was going to go to Buffalo, and they actually brought him back. And something that's confusing me because of how free agency's played out for the Chargers is they signed him, I think, for like a 1 year, $18 million deal guaranteed, which, look, dude, like, set the guy, out, let him go out in the sunset, on a get the bag, get some money. He deserves it. But I'm like, what did
Just
they
what
tell him?
Spacey said. Oh, it's a smart move.
Huh?
That was a smart move to bring him back.
No,
And
100%.
18 million's not breaking the bank either.
No, 10,000%. He was in my top 3 of a guy we needed to bring back. Holy
Sorry, guys.
shit.
I'm sorry, guys.
Oh my God. I thought
What's happening?
that was pretty cool. I like that he had the Lucha Libre mask. That was pretty rad.
Said, "Oh, I'm sorry."
He's like, get off my network, dude.
Dude, was that a different dimension? Like, did that guy just
Isn't that the Broncos Spanish channel?
Correct.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Crazy.
So they brought back Khalil Mack. That's good. That's going to help with the edge room,
Top rope.
especially considering we lost Joey Bosa, even though it was time for Joey to leave. Another guy, they brought back the punter. Oh, yeah, big whoop. He can hold the ball for a kicker. And believe me, a lot of people weren't fans of this guy, but they brought him back, and he's got good stats. Confusing one. They brought in the cornerback Dante Jackson from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this guy, not the best, but when he was in zone coverage, which primarily Jesse Minter runs, the guy had like 5 interceptions last season. The dude was a baller in zone, right? But I got a feeling that he's pretty stiff against man coverage. My least favorite, then bring it back, is Bradley Bozeman. The guy's a walking turnstile. Freaking reminds me of like a pink mole rat. So, but off the field, he's an amazing human. Him and his wife have a great charity. They're amazing people. When it comes to football, I don't care about anything else. So there's that. Another one that's pretty good, when we lost Puna Ford to the Rams, we did not lose his partner, Tier Tart, who was previously with the Tennessee Titans. They signed him back, I believe, on a 1 year, $5.5 million deal. He only played 30% of the snaps last season, but the dude's a beast, and I think his snap take's gonna take a uptick next season. And then one of the biggest signings that we did was Najee Harris from Pittsburgh Steelers. And look, man, I'll give it up.
It was a battle. It was a battle for a little bit.
Sure, you guys could have had him if it was up to me. But I think he's a prototypical Harbaugh, Greg Roman guy. This is a dude they wanted. Jim Harbaugh recruited the hell out of this guy in 2016, I believe, out of Alabama. Was trying to get him to come to Michigan. Obviously, he didn't. The thing about him is he's a career, 3.9 yards or something. Nothing special. There's some great highlights of him. He's just a guy to me, but he's a durable guy. He is an Iron Man. So you got to give it up for that with him. And I still think they're going to bring another guy in, probably via the draft, but all signs point that fan favorite J.K. Dobbins is probably not coming back, which is going to be upsetting.
Sorry, just real quick on this. You realize that there's an entire country between Canada and Mexico, right? Like a really big one. Actually,
I got a fact. I'm going to come back at Richie. Go, Richie, go.
So, anywho, and to start with, the only Spanish that I know, and this is literally it, is Cinco cervezas, por favor.
Cinco, what the hell?
Cinco. I didn't even know, son. Go Cinco.
Well, we pronounce it weird here in Canada, so just deal with it.
Queen's English, duh.
Sure.
Four beers.
5 beers, please.
Richie, guess what I just learned real quick, guys? I know this is a football show. So you know the 49th parallel, correct?
Yes.
More Americans live farther north than the majority of Canadians do, because the majority of Canadian population is below that 49th parallel. There's 70% hover in one area, I believe that's Quebec area, and then 50% are below it. And the northern states along the border in the United States, Washington over, actually live farther north than more Canadians do. So I just learned that, and that baffled the bejesus out of me. I don't know if you knew about that or.
Well, the way that Canada works is that the west is all level across the border, but then when you get east, the U.S. kind of jets north in that section there, and that's where like New York and like Boston and that kind of stuff is. But your weather over there on the coast, where that population boom is, and there's a huge populace over there, right, is very much mitigated by the ocean and the water that's in that area. So it's way colder in Canada than it is even in those states, just because of where they're physically located. But yeah, there's a massive population that's in that like northern region there, in that kind of like whole section.
Wherever it dips down, it like dips down. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Fun fact of the day, kids. All right, moving on. So Najee Harris, and I knew, so Jack was kind of hinting at it. I think it was going back and forth between the Raiders and the Chargers, and unfortunately for us, we won. They brought back, we lost Nick Neiman, one of our special team ace linebackers. I can't think of the top of the head where we lost him, but we did bring back Troy Dye, who we got from the Minnesota Vikings last year, and that kind of solidifies that core four of linebackers. And what that signifies to me is that he's going to take that Nick Neiman role next season. Houston. Okay, thank you. And then we brought back Jalen Reagor. He made one spectacular catch against New Orleans Saints, and that's about it. Why they brought him back, it's because Justin Herbert's going to have to start throwing him to himself, apparently. So luckily they got that guy. And then fan favorite, I think we already talked about it, was Denzel Perryman. I'm glad he's back. He's kind of like a Spillane. Don't count on him to cover anybody other than maybe an offensive lineman that's going to do some trick play. But other than that, the dude is a run thumper, man. He's going to knock your block off. He's a different era kind of cat, and I'm excited that he's back. But and then we were going earlier. We were talking about EFRAs, and that was our tight end Tucker Fisk, who is literally a bowling ball and just this large human body. It's really weird. It's like watching a hippopotamus trying to catch a ball. He did it a few times last season. It was kind of like, just like, did that just really happen? And then he rumbles for like 5 yards, and you're just like, oh my God, it's impressive. But they brought him back. I honestly don't know what his role really is. It's like a blocking massive human. But yeah, so far that's about it. And for the majority of Charger fans, we're pretty dissatisfied with free agency right now, and we can all see what's left on the free agency board. And yeah, but with Joe Ortiz, he did kind of hit it out of the park last year's draft, and this staff
all right. See you guys.
Salute, Spaceys.
So they went after Mike Williams over like Cooper Kupp, or God damn.
Yeah.
Super cheap deal, though. I mean,
yeah, it's a pretty cheap deal. He's a veteran guy, and you also have to remember is that he is not the same type of receiver as Cooper Kupp.
No. And he's familiar with your scheme, your quarterback. So,
well, he's familiar with Justin. That's about it. Because he's gonna be in a world of shock coming over back to LA, because it's completely new facilities, different city, different everything.
Yeah,
they were in Orange County, a county below LA, when Mike was here. Well, it is what it is, man. Just hoping we hit it.
So Diza, I think the Chargers, basically what I'm hearing from you is that there's some moves that are head scratching. There's some moves that were not made that were head scratching, but the guys that, at least a good number of them that you brought back, were ones that you were happy to bring back.
Sure.
Now
I think Bradley Bozeman blackmailed our coach or something.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you had your. I want to say he was like the 36th ranked center. Last time I checked, there's 32 teams. So
yeah,
tell me how that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite possible that the writing's on the wall that this is just like a really bad time to want or need an offensive center, and so I have a funny feeling that seeking to do so in the draft plus maybe free agency next year may be the better way of going about it.
Richie, we had $93 million, and the highest paid guy was Khalil Mack for 1 year. $18 million.
But that's irrelevant. If the guy's not available, the guy's not available. That's the problem that happened this free agency. There really was not offensive centers available. Just like Alex literally got like one of the only options available at left tackle for his team.
Yeah.
Like there was so few that were available in free agency. It's not a matter of, hey, throw money at the problem. The problem is that there is a problem. There's just not any there.
I wasn't just talking I wasn't talking singularly just center. I was like, because guard play is pretty piss poor as well. And then I was talking about weapons as well. There's still hope because there's a few guards out there. Becton is still out there. Fingers crossed. I highly doubt it because he's going to cost a boatload. But yeah, there's still hope on, I think everything correlates. Center and guards kind of work together. And, if both of them suck, they're all going to suck. But say you have two good guards and a shitty center, it's going to be a little bit better because, the centers don't really have to work in so much room to pick up stunts and stuff as much as a guard would. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah, the further out you go, the more mobile you need to
That's why I think they want to move Zion, who cannot pick up a stunt to save his life. That's why I think they want to move him to center because he's a beast of a dude. He's a very strong, he's a great athlete, but he doesn't pick up stunts that well, and it would probably work to his benefit if he could be a center.
Sure. So interesting moves by the Chargers, and it'll be interesting to see by next show where the teams are at, kind of as we get closer and closer to the draft. Jack, real quick, over to you. Let's blast through your free agency stuff. And
I know we're limited. I'll try to make it somewhat quick. But the way I got it called is like, it's Christmas Eve, right? As you're a kid, you're all excited. Can't wait until Christmas morning to get that shiny bicycle. And you wake up and you get a pair of socks. This is one of the best ways I can describe it because there wasn't anything super huge, but you can see the direction of what the Raiders are trying to do. So I'm just going to start off. We got to bring the big elephant in the room. Max Crosby gets his extension. 3 years, $106.5 million, 91 guaranteed. So he's going to be here for the next 5 years. So that was the best part of the whole offseason so far. But you can see what the Raiders are trying to do. And they bring back, their other defensive tackle in Adam Butler. They signed him to a 3 year, $16.5 million contract. He had like 5 sacks. He was an integral part of our D-line rotation last year. And then you come out and they re-signed Malcolm Kuntz, who you guys know he was all hurt, didn't play last year at all. So I thought he was going to get a lot more. I thought he was going to get more like Khalil Mack money and go elsewhere. But they brought him back. So the emphasis is right up front is on that defensive line front. So you can see what they're trying to do there. And then, of course, with losing Moorig, they bring in, a guy who's capable, safety Jeremy Chin on a 2-year deal. He's going to fit the Pete Carroll mold. So we talked about our RDFAs, Palomalu. He's like 6'4" as a safety. Now you're bringing Chin, 6'3" as a safety. I can see them trying to recreate like the big backfields like they had back in Seattle and going that route. So again, the biggest exciting one was definitely Adam Butler and Malcolm Kuntz and Chin were the 3 guys I was the most excited about. Other ones, what was interesting was offensive lineman, Alex Kappa.
Yeah.
So Alex Capo, he was on Tampa Bay and he played extremely well. He got a big contract with the Bengals, and last year just stunk it up. I mean, he gave up like eight or nine sacks. So he was one of the worst rated guards last year. But before then, he played extremely well. So I think they're taking a flyer on him. I mean, he's getting pretty much starter money, 2 years,
Jack,
$11 million.
Jack, he didn't like that Skyline chili, man. I'm telling you.
Probably not. Probably hit him the wrong way. But I think he's an interesting pick. When I first saw that, I was like, wow, that's one of the first guys you pick up. And he was worded the worst offensive guard. And again, that's what we talked about earlier in the show. You need a better offensive line. So I'm kind of finding it interesting. I think he'll battle with Parham because he's played his whole career at right guard. Parham's a smaller, right guard as a whole. He's only like 290 pounds. And you're going against the guys like Chris Jones, you're going to get pushed back. So he's a little bigger. I think he's about 314. So you're getting a little bit more beef on there. Other ones was kind of interesting. Landon Roberts from Pittsburgh. So Raiders go again for another Pittsburgh linebacker. Spillane they got from Pittsburgh. Now they're going Roberts. He had a down year. He only had like 40 some odd tackles, but 2 years before that, he had over 100 for each season. Before that, he is definitely not a guy you want out in pass coverage. So it's kind of, they went with this theme, they're kind of going after guys, get them a little bit cheaper off a down year.
Shut up,
But
Jose.
that had some success, over
Too
time.
late, Jose, by the way.
Hey, so was he hurt last season? Is that why he had only 40? Do you know?
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he was hurt or not
I
hurt.
think Highsmith-
Not enough info.
I think Highsmith kind of came on.
You
took
can't go
more.
wrong from a linebacker from Pittsburgh, man. So
Yeah, exactly.
pretty.
Well, I'm hoping, either he lost his job or he got hurt, one of the two. Didn't really have a lot of info on that. The other ones that kind of just rounded off, you got Lonnie Johnson on a 1 year deal, safety, backup, special teamers, nothing more. One that's kind of interesting, from Green Bay is Eric Stokes. He was first round.
God, Jesus, come on, man.
Why, you like him or dislike him?
Dude, I'm a huge fan of Mike. The writing's been all over the wall for years on him. So.
Well, it's interesting because they got him for only $4 million. It's like usually.
Oh, is it 4, not 6? Okay, so we got even more of a discount.
Yeah, 4. Look at it. It says $4 million, and I just find it interesting that this is coming off his rookie contract. Probably just didn't live up to what it was, but I think he'll fill in nicely as a backup because the Raiders still have both their starting cornerbacks. So we are kind of lacking there when they really have Richardson as the next one after that. So just kind of filling depth, and that's pretty much. Again, I know we're up on the time limit, guys, so I tried to speed through it as fast as I could. Oh, I do want to say this: 2 guys I want to see come back are Chason, who's a defensive end.
Yeah.
They picked him up last year, and he got 5 sacks in like 7 games, and he looked great coming in to filling out, backup defensive end.
Jack, let me ask you a question.
Starter. Yeah.
Have you lost hope in Tyree?
I think Tyree is going to be that rotational defensive interior player and that can play.
So you think they're gonna kick him in?
He plays better that way.
Huh. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really see him, stand on the outside. They also got Snowden back. So you got Kuntz and Snowden. And if you get Chase on, that's just telling you that Tyree has to move in because we are down 1 defensive tackle in the way of John Jenkins. But the guy's going to be 36 years old. I don't see him coming back. And I think they're going to probably, again, want to go big on the defensive line. So, again, what everyone's saying, Mason Graham, he's there
That's
at 6.
your boy. That's who you
That is
want.
my boy. If he's there, that's who I want. And then go big on the backfield. So
I think your guys' biggest loss was Hobbs. I'm glad he's not in this division anymore.
he
That guy,
got paid.
yeah, but he was, for you guys, he was your lockdown dude.
He is. The only problem with them, when he's on the field, he's stellar. But the problem, his availability is not his best ability because
Sure.
I think he missed like 7 games last year.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and man, he got way overpaid.
Yeah, he got a lot. He got
I do know when
16 mil guaranteed.
Yeah,
Where do you go again? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Green
I didn't
Bay.
know.
Green
They
Bay.
swapped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously we got the first bit here of free agency done, tampering period, new league year, guys that are going to be released were, guys that are going to be retained are. I do believe that our teams that's all four, will likely see as we near the draft or even just after the draft, you'll see surprise releases from every team. It happens every year where you're kind of shocked about the guy that's either traded on draft day, released just after draft day, whatever the case may be. That kind of bolsters that, major wave post-draft of free agency as well. So that'll be an interesting piece. As we start getting deeper into this kind of like post-free agency piece here, it will be interesting to see other pieces kind of come into play and what roles those guys may play on each of our teams. We'll get into some other details in terms of how our guys that we currently have on our roster fit into the scheme, what roles we think they might play. We'll start getting all into those kind of pieces here. And then, of course, because it wouldn't be a show without it, we'll do a mock draft where we would like, our teams to draft, that kind of stuff as a group.
Yeah.
We'll get all into that and go that route. So, guys, we obviously have quite a beefy schedule coming up as we start moving down towards that direction for our teams and whatnot. Thank you for all of you who stayed with us as long as you have. It's been a little longer show today
I'm gonna
than
go cry
normal.
now, but thanks.
Really
guys.
appreciate it, guys. Mission accomplished. I think DZ has now officially fallen into a proper depression as opposed to a faux depression. No, just kidding. Anyways,
Colorado Kool-Aid keeps me going. Let's just know.
But anyways, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. It's been a great show. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of new guys coming into each of our teams. We can all start digging in and start thinking about how they will work and why they'll work for our different teams. Thank you all for joining. Where the West Side is the best side, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.